If you're an HR professional who works hard to fill roles within your company, keep employees engaged, and build company culture, welcome to America Back to Work, where dreams only work if we do. We'll share wide-ranging issues surrounding pre-employment background screening, HR topics such as recruiting, hiring, labor trends, and company culture, as well as broader HR-influenced business topics such as customer experience, service level excellence, and protecting what matters through best practices in prevention, protection, and corporate security. America Back to Work is brought to you by S2 Verify. Here's your host, Arnette Heintze.
Welcome to America Back to Work, brought to you by S2 Verify, where our purpose is to help you hire with confidence and manage insider risk. I'm your host, Arnette Heintze. Thank you for joining. Today, our guest is Vanessa Partin. Vanessa is the Chief Human Resource Officer at the Redgrave Companies, which is a specialty law practice. Prior to Redgrave, Vanessa had 28 years of HR experience at other law firms. Vanessa, congratulations on moving into the CHR role this year, and thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to join me. Would you mind sharing a little bit more about this beautiful 28-year journey that you've had?
Well, thank you, Arnette, for the opportunity, and I am honored to be here. I will try to condense my 28-year journey. It actually was pretty interesting. I actually started in the federal government and got my feet wet in HR at the National Labor Relations Board. So kind of interesting working there with administrative law judges and personnel security. And so just wanted to do something different. Started working in law firms as a legal secretary, believe it or not, and had a couple of partners to say, you have something special. We think that you should do more than just be a legal secretary. How about you do this? Whatever it happened to be, I think it was the project of the day. And so, got into different types of areas of direction in HR, just, basically filling in for the office manager. And then finally, a couple of our partners left and went to another firm, and they didn't have an HR department. Reached out to me and said, we need someone to run this office. Would you be interested in coming to apply? I was very young, had family, and wasn't so sure about taking on a huge responsibility, but I tried it. Met with the managing partner. She said, well, I know that they said you could be my firm administrator, but I'd rather you be my personnel administrator. So how long ago that was? She said, you have the right attitude. You have something about you that will help grow, this department. We don't have one in place. Can you come and create one? So was there for 6 years and 4 years as the sole HR person of the 75 attorney firm. Can you imagine? I cut my teeth on a lot of things, made some mistakes, learned a few things, but I was able to get a good, solid foundation in HR. And that just led from one position to the other. I ended up at a law firm, Kirkland & Ellis. I was there for 28 years. And the job that I have now fell in my lap. It was a divine appointment, I said. Got a call from a recruiter and said, we're looking for an HR person who can come in and kind of create structure and create an HR environment. They have someone in place, but that's not really know what they need. I listened and said, well, I'll hear what you have to say. Kind of heard them out. And the more they talked about the role, the more they talked about, starting things anew, I remembered back to my earlier years when I created the department, from the ground up. And I said, this is like full circle. I started my career, developing a department. I'm probably going to end my career in developing a department. And so, working with the Redgrave companies has been a great opportunity to use those skills and abilities I've developed over those 28 years, all of the things I've learned, the best practices I've created, the people I've mentored. And I'm just thankful that I've been able to work in an environment where they allow me to do what I love, which is human resources.
Fabulous. So tell us about having been at one organization for so long, because I think there's a lot of us that are experience that or are about to experience. People that might spend 25, 28, 30 years at an organization, leave, and then contemplate maybe another opportunity. Tell us how it was for you to leave one firm after such a long period of time and the adjustment you've had into this new role.
It was exciting and scary. I'm going to be honest. When I talked to my children about changing, they all looked at me like I had twins. And at this time in your life, you're going to change jobs and leave someplace you've been there 28 years. And I said, well, I'm up for the challenge. I'm still continuing to enjoy what I do. And so what I did was I just took one step at a time and just said, if this is for me, it's obvious for me by the way that it came to me because I was not looking. And it just sort of just fell into my lap. And so, I would encourage anyone, don't be afraid to take that step. You just never know where you might land.
Any advice for our audience that might be doing a similar transition? Any top 2 or 3 points you would give about your first year of transition, things to focus on and maybe put your energy into?
Be a good listener. One of the things that I recommend anyone do when they're changing jobs or environments is listen and observe first. Don't go in with an agenda or to change anything right away. You need to observe to see how things operate, to see how people interact, and then make your recommendations and do it slowly. Change is necessary, but we know that change is painful. And sometimes change creates more problems than it needs to. So I would encourage people to be patient with yourself, be a good listener, be a good observer, ask questions, find out what has happened in the past before you go and make wholesale changes that could create more problems for you than you want.
So I know at the Redgrave companies, you've been doing a lot of hiring and you're kind of going down a path of building your own dream team. Tell us about that process and what that's like right now.
Again, one thing I did was I looked and I observed and I looked at the pockets of things that would touch HR. And one thing I said to the leadership, I said, HR is in everything. Whatever you do, whether it's hiring, whether it's training, whether it's compensation, whether it's deciding to have a new benefit, whether it's deciding, you're going to have a new organizational entity, you're going to bring in another company, HR is involved. And so we need individuals that are flexible, that are adaptable, that can kind of pivot when they need to, that have good organizational skills. They know how to research. I go back to the listening because I have learned more by listening than I have by talking.
Yep.
And so I just would say that you want to just make sure that you're looking at everything holistically and that you are making sure you have covered all the bases. I have generalists, I have specialists who sometimes cross across their different areas. It just depends on what the projects are. But I bring them into everything that we do, no matter what their role is, so the whole department understands the division.
What suggestions do you have around team design for this HR initiative that you're building and structuring? Any suggestions on the design approach to it?
Be flexible. You may have a great idea about how things should work, but listen. Again, I go back to listen. We collaborate on how things should be structured. And we make sure that there is inherent in it the ability to grow. Everybody can grow, but there's some flexibility to change because we know depending on the size of it or the project or the size of the entity, things could change. And so making sure that people have, they're flexible, they're willing to, to look at things differently. And I always tell my team, I don't have all the answers. I'm a good researcher, but I don't have all the answers. I want to hear what you have to say. And let's do this together. So it's a collaboration. Doesn't mean you're going to always take their recommendations all the time, but the fact that you include them in all decisions, believe me, it helps to build that team that you know.
I imagine this team you're assembling as specialists and generalists and others, expertise in it. What kind of characteristics are you looking for in candidates for these roles?
Interpersonal skills. The soft skills go a long way to developing a good team. I believe you can teach people anything, but you cannot teach them how to treat people. You cannot teach them how to understand people. Sometimes that's inherent. So I look for interpersonal skills because sometimes they have to serve as advocates for our employees. And so being able to get involved with an employee who's having a challenge, who may not necessarily want to come to the chief with their question, but we'll go to another person in HR. So interpersonal skills, again, active listening, research, being able to research and being willing to learn. We don't know it all. And the way things change, you have to be able to learn. And those are sort of the keys that I look for, because I can teach you about compliance. I can teach you about benefit administration. But I, again, can teach you how you have to entrust and entreat people. and how you have to make sure that you are carrying forth the right image when someone approaches you.
Yeah. So, given your long established career in the legal profession, in working HR, is there anything about this space that is unique or different from other HR programs and maybe different industries? Anything you can share about that?
When you are working with attorneys, I've been working with attorneys a number of years, and I've worked with other professions. They want to make sure that what you are communicating is lawful, legal, compliant, and makes sense. And sometimes, no matter how much you explain something to an attorney, they're going to always investigate your answer. So, you have to not take that personally, but as a means of entreating with that person. Say, they come to you with a question, I want to hire this person, but their salary's out of line, and they've been working at this other place too long, and I just don't know what else to do, but I want to hire them. What do you think? You have to be able to come back with why it would work, why it wouldn't work. Give them things to think about. With other professionals that I work with, sometimes once you give them the why and the when, they leave you alone. Attorneys, not so much. They may go away and come back and say, well, last week we had this conversation about my assistant, and she really wasn't doing what I wanted to do, but now she's walking on water. What did you say to her? And you have to be able to go back to your conversation and say, well, I used your very words. You wanted her to do this, and that's what I encouraged you to do. So it's an opportunity, to be a storyteller with the attorney, but also you have to be prepared because they're going to come back and ask you something that you told them 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah. Well, I know there's other HR professionals out there that are trying to build their own dream teams. So do you have any advice you can offer up to these leaders that are currently, neck deep in this effort?
I would say look beyond the resume. The resume is just, to me, is a snapshot in time. Someone decided they were going to put down what they had done and what they possibly wanted to. Go beyond the resume. Look at their skills. Look at what they're passionate about. If you are passionate about anything, you will do well. And if something you don't know, you will go beyond to learn it. And so I encourage my HR colleagues all the time. I know you have a job description. I know you have what you think the role might be, but ask the person how they would handle something in that particular role. Even if they didn't have the experience, if they have the right answer and the right methodology for coming up with that answer, you have your person you can hire. And you've been able to mentor and grow someone who may not necessarily have an HR background. It's not about the resume all the time. It's about the ability, the passion, and the willingness to do a good job.
That's great advice. So when it comes to recruiting HR professionals versus the run-of-the-mill average employee of a law firm, which I can imagine brings its own complexities. But when it comes to recruiting HR professionals versus other employees, any tips or strategies you could share with us?
I look for team building skills. In HR, you have to be able to bring in others to get the work done. I also look for emotional intelligence of themselves. I'm very self-aware. I know when it's time for me to take a break. I know when it's time for me not to answer that question. And so, being able to have that realization, being diplomatic, someone who can take a difficult situation and turn it around really quickly, or have at least the know-how to get that done, or who to go to, knowing when to say, I don't know the answer to that question, but I'll get back to you, and feeling confident about it. Again, we don't all know everything, and we never want to give someone an answer just because we think that's what they want to hear. Always better to say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that right now, but I'll get back to you. So I look for someone who's confident enough to say that and who can talk to any level of employee, whether it's, someone who's a staff person or the leader of the organization, because sometimes leaders are going to come directly to your workers and not to you. And so not being intimidated by the fact that the founder just asked me a question, being able to answer the question confidently and, assuredly.
So when it comes to recruiting HR professionals, aside from looking for credible work experiences, what are you looking for as far as education or certifications or other training? Can you summarize some of these elements that you think make a good, maybe entry-level HR representative?
I look at anyone who has even attempted to go to school, to college, to university, whether they completed the degree or not. I believe that shows discipline if they are actively involved and engaged in earning their degree. I am HR certified in 3 or 4 different areas. And so I would recommend the certification process because, again, it's a discipline. And so someone who takes the initiative to gain more knowledge, whether they're doing it on their own or through a structured program, is someone that I would be interested in. Does not necessarily mean I would not hire someone without a degree. It's going to be what have they done to grow? Because we have to grow each and every day in order to keep thriving. And so if someone has no experience, but they have, say, education background, if they've gone out to get a certification, to me, that says that they are willing to learn, they're willing to grow, and they're someone that I'd want to mentor.
Yeah. Can you summarize or point to a couple of the certifications that you think rise to the top as far as, HR professionals are concerned? Any certifications that you might direct a member of our audience to?
Sure. The Human Resources Certification Institute, HRCI, has several certifications. I am a senior professional in human resources certified, but they also have them at the entry level for those who may be more day-to-day kind of HR professionals who do the paperwork. And so I like that organization because, again, you can get certified in what we call the administrative professional in human resources. And it doesn't mean that you're leading a person, but you're leading an effort. You're managing the day-to-day resources. And so they have international and global certifications as well. It's an organization that I actually helped write the exam for. And so I encourage anyone to go to HRCI, look at their website, and there's a wealth of information for anyone who's looking to be certified.
That's fabulous. So, Vanessa, it's about time for us to sign off today. But before I do, I'd like to ask you a question that I ask every guest. And that is, if S2 Verify were to conduct a background investigation on you, would there be any surprises?
It would be too many surprises, but I think you would find that I am not only a grandmother of 15, I am a great-grandmother of 3. I am heavily involved in my church organization, so I do a lot of mentoring. I do a lot of education in the community, but I'm also a closet investigator. And anyone that you would talk to would probably say, you know what? I know she says she's just an HR professional. We think she's a closet detective. So I even thought about going to the CIA at one time. So you would find a very different, very different background. I love to cook. I love to bake. And not many people actually know those things about.
Well, that's fabulous. That's fabulous. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining. Would you mind also sharing with where our audience might keep track of what you've got going at the Redgrave company and the best way to keep up?
Sure. I am on LinkedIn. My profile is Vanessa Partin. I am all things Vanessa Partin. You can go to LinkedIn. You will find me. I'm very active on LinkedIn and in the Forbes Human Resources category.
That's fabulous. So thank you again for sharing some of your insights in this very unique area of HR. And now I'd like to have another minute with my partners, Jim and Bill at S2 Verify. When employees show up to work knowing that, our purpose is to help our clients hire with confidence and manage insider risk, I think that's a driving force for everyone. Bill, what's your thought on our purpose about helping our clients hire with confidence and manage insider risk?
I think it's a significant purpose for us to have is that, we're going to every day, create a culture of service. And so, as you said, our employees have been here for multiple years, some, many of them over 10 years. And they understand that at the end of the day, the client pays their bills. And so, not only are we providing background checks to help with insider risk, but we're also helping people get to work, right? So we're qualifying people, through background checks to make sure that they get to work, quickly, and that we give the information to the HR manager so that they can either get the person to work quickly or delineate if the person is qualified. And so, at the end of the day, I think our purpose is to serve. And so I think we do a very good job of that, no matter if it's 24 hours a day of answering emails or answering telephones or whatever, and getting the people the information they need.
That's great. Jim, Bill just made a reference to the speed in which our team delivers services. Why don't you frame that up and provide what is typically the response time in our service? And there's always outliers depending on certain circumstances. Why don't you explain a little bit of that?
It was one of the first things that Billy and I started out with, was when you try to differentiate yourself in the market, right? If the source of a record is location heavy and everybody's running there to get it, then the question becomes, how are you going to differentiate yourself in the collection of, the accuracy of, the delivery of that same record that everyone's trying to garner? And what Billy and I have been able to do, and Arnette with yourself more recently, and involvement in the business, is been able to build a framework that enables us to do that. So when we go to customers and we talk about it, we just had this experience with one of Yale's clients, where they actually believed we didn't do the background correctly or properly because it came back too quickly. So what was 7 or 8 days historically was 3.5 to 4 days with S2 Verified. It prompts that kind of response. But I want to back up to kind of your earlier frame around, purpose and what our mission has been. That's been our mission from day one: accurate, timely, in a reasonably prudent fashion to get it delivered. And that is everybody on the S2 Verify team, so that everything they touch, they realize that in order to meet that standard, that they're going to do whatever they have to do in the least amount of time. We have set the benchmark, for client redress. The FCRA allows you up to 30 days. I believe 96% of ours are turned around in 24 hours. Okay. That's when a consumer calls and is saying to us, there's something wrong with my background, or I think there's an error or mistake. And that's your time to resolution. Obviously, it can take a little longer if we've got to go to a court that's slow, whatever the case might be. Billy and I set a precedent from the beginning. Every phone call is returned within 2 hours. Okay? I don't know anyone else. We know a lot of screening companies that just don't return phone calls. We return them within 2 hours, usually within the hour. And so there's a series of those things that have helped us get S2 Verify to where we are today, and kind of to what our client base expects from us in the industry.
For our audience, please tune in next week when we talk about transparent leadership techniques with Sharon O'Donnell. We'll see you then. And it goes without saying, let's get America back to work, because dreams only work if we do. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining, and I look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you, Arnette.
If you want to stay abreast of HR, recruiting, and hiring trends, tips, and tools, make sure you subscribe to America Back to Work. If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a rating and a review.